The Kurds join the fight. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Off the top, Democrats in the Senate attempting to end the war in Iran with a loss for President Trump. A war powers resolution vote just a couple hours ago. John Fetterman joining the Republicans to keep the power with the president. The vote failing as the president neutralizes a terrorist regime that the Democrats, have been supporting for years. And they tried to end this war. After giving all of that money to Iran, they tried to end the war with a loss for the president. That failed late this afternoon. On to the war itself. You've probably heard of the Kurds, but maybe you don't know exactly who these people are. Well, the Kurds are a massive ethnic group in the Middle East who have no country. They are made up of Sunni Muslims. There are Christian Kurds. There are also completely secular Kurds. There are nearly 10 million of these people living in Iran. There are millions and millions more right next door in Iraq. Hundreds of thousands of Kurds are war fighters. They have been an integral fighting partner with the United States for the last 25 years as we have combated radical Islam since 9/11. And there are reports tonight that after phone calls with our president, that Kurdish forces are joining the team in this fight against Iran. And they could be the ground troops that are needed to fully castrate this regime. And that is more positive news on this fight after General Kane this morning revealed just how quickly Iran is being neutralized.
Iran's theater ballistic missile shots fired are down 86% from the first day of fighting, with a 23% decrease just in the last 24 hours. And their one-way attack drone shots are down 73% from the opening days.
So think about that. Ballistic missile shots fired are down 86% in a matter of 3 days. That's dramatic. The kamikaze drones, these one-way drones that just arrive and explode, they have been by far Iran's most effective weapon, delivering the explosion at our base in Kuwait, the one that killed 6 Americans. They used these for the embassy bombing in Saudi Arabia, also hits on energy infrastructure. These are our biggest concern, are these drones, and their usage has plummeted 73% in just the last 3 days. With that, you wonder how many more days can this regime hold on to power if they run out of pretty much all of their weaponry as everything else is decimated, as Pete Hegseth told us this morning.
The Iranian Air Force is no more, built for 1996, destroyed in 2026. The Iranian Navy rests at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Combat ineffective, decimated, destroyed, defeated, pick your adjective. Yesterday, in the Indian Ocean, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II.
The Navy and the Air Force of Iran have been decimated in 96 hours. It appears nearly every single warship that Iran had, including from this spectacular video here, is now at the bottom of the ocean. Ba-boom. That is a massive ship sinking fast. That's a lot of dead regime terrorists. The leader of the unit that tried to assassinate our president was also killed yesterday, and the United States and Israel have full control of the skies over Iran. What's left of the leadership of that regime are now cowering in holes and launching what's left of their drone fleet, hoping to create enough damage and commotion and bust up enough of the economy to turn public opinion against the war in the United States and convince our government to give up and lose this fight. And Iran is getting a lot of help in that effort, unfortunately. The White House is trying to combat an abundance of hate against this mission, coming not just from Democrats here politically, but also from conservative social media influencers we talked about last night, and even retired Army Colonel Douglas Macgregor, who is a fringe voice that always is ready with a contrarian take.
So this is really about Israel's interest in destroying Iran and removing it as an obstacle to Israeli military hegemony or Jewish supremacy, however you want to put it. And we're into it. We're committed to it. We will eventually run out of missiles. And I think we're on the road already, because I just don't think President Trump or his advisors really believed that they would end up in a long war with Iran. And that's where they are right now. I think Iran is going to survive. I don't see any evidence that it's going to suddenly pick up the phone, call Washington, and beg for mercy.
So Colonel McGregor said that on Monday. That was 2 days ago. On Tuesday, yesterday, the New York Times reported that the Iranians were calling the White House asking to cut a deal to end the war. Trump posting on social media, their air defense, Air Force, Navy, and leadership is gone. They want to talk. I said, too late. That was yesterday. Democrats, who allowed 20 million people to invade our country in 4 years and signed off on trillions in printed money that destroyed the cost of living in this country and your affordability, looking to score a cheap political fight off of this off of this war. Here's Hakeem Jeffries praying that Iran wins this fight.
The American people want us to focus on making their life better, making their life more affordable, not getting involved in another endless war in the Middle East that is going to end in failure.
Why aren't you focusing on affordability and all the disasters we created here domestically? They are. In fact, the president had a big energy summit today talking about lowering the cost of energy. They're doing everything to fix the disasters of the last 4 years and of the Democrat policies generally over the last 15, 20 years. Of course they want this to fail. They want this war to fail. They're rooting for this as hard as they can to fail. These are the people who gave Iran billions and billions of dollars thinking that it would make them nice. Yes, just one of so many humiliations for the Democrat Party in recent years. Democrats and Obama paid for the roadside bombs that killed and maimed our troops. They paid for the suicide drones that are flying all over the Middle East. If you had been the architect of one of the most humiliating appeasements in American history, which is what we've done with Iran over the last 15 years, how would you feel watching a strongman follow your act by launching a full-scale invasion to decimate the regime that you cowered and capitulated to? Of course you'd be rooting for this to fail. It's paramount to their objectives that this fail. Take a listen to Mark Kelly, the senator who told our troops not to follow any orders that he didn't believe are legitimate.
They don't seem to know what they're doing or why they did this. I think this is a perfect example of what happens when you have a leader of a country who doesn't take input, doesn't take advice, puts a lot of yes people around him, and makes these, decisions without the right input and without the right data. So I think this is not going well for them.
All your input and all your data, allegedly. What did that teach Democrats over the years? How to build a regime, how to fund a regime that's gotten to this point, that is fully intent on building a nuclear weapon, that lied through their teeth to Obama and them. At least they claim they fell for it. Maybe they wanted Iran to get the bomb. I don't know how they could have possibly been so naive. All of the information that they claimed that they had, they made the dumbest decisions possible, and they funded this regime that is finally now being put down. Think about that. Robert O'Brien was National Security Advisor to President Trump in the first term, and he joins us now. Mr. Ambassador, good to have you on the show. Give us your assessment of where we are on day 4 here.
Nice to be with you, Rob, and you're absolutely right about the funding of Iran. Before I was National Security Advisor, I was the hostage envoy. And when I came into office, we had hostages in Iran, Americans held in Iran, wrongfully detained in Iran. And the first thing they told me is, you know the price to get them out. It's $1 billion per hostage. I basically said, how about if the Ayatollah gets to wake up in the morning and we don't pay you any money and you just give us our hostages back? President Trump paid no ransom. We got our hostages back, and we changed the behavior. But then as soon as Biden came into office, they started the cash funnel again. They paid billions of dollars to get additional hostages out. So why wouldn't the Iranians take hostages, Rob, if they knew there was so much money in the business? And
yeah.
So all these missiles that we see that are flying against us with their Chinese parts and Chinese guidance systems, we the American taxpayers paid for those with the ransoms that we paid for American hostages.
Right.
It's absurd.
It's another war we're paying for both sides of, which is, it is absurd. There's so many wars like that if you look around the world, which is the scariest thing. The Pentagon today sharing just how much Iranian ballistic missile activity has dropped. We showed it before, 86%. It's down from day one. The drones also, that's their big weapon, 73% down. In your assessment of this war, how long do you think that Iran can continue to fight? There's a lot of people that want to say that Iran's doing well here. What's your assessment of it?
So Iran is not doing well, and having been involved in these things over the years, and having sat at the Situation Room table, and watched these things, this is going faster than we could have ever expected. We're ahead of schedule. We're taking out their drones. We're taking out their ballistic missiles. That's the first step, so they can't harass our allies in the Gulf and Israel, and our ships. Now we'll start taking out lower levels of the command and control, and I think we're going to have Iran on the brink of surrender or disaster very soon.
Very, very soon.
And I just want to give a shout out to our airmen, sailors, Marines, soldiers. They're just doing a tremendous job. God bless them.
Absolutely, and from us as well on that. Real quick before I let you go, you've watched Trump operate. You've advised him. You've been there with him. You've watched him resist so many that tried to pull him into some kind of a conflict or a war. That was what he was known for. He got into this one, and he's angered a lot of people that are in his base. A lot of the social media influencers that supported him are angry at him right now. Why do you think, after all the years of resisting, why are we in a war right now?
Listen, the president and I talked about this, and I shouldn't say what I talked to the president about, but the Iranians were going to get a nuclear weapon. And it was just a matter of time. A nuclear weapon takes time and it takes resources. The Iranians had both. They were going to end up like little rocket man, like Kim Jong-un, with a nuclear weapon. They were going to be able to hold San Francisco and LA and New York and Chicago at risk. And after the way they've killed Americans for the past 40 years, you don't think they would have launched or blackmailed us with those nuclear weapons? And President Trump was not going to sit on his hands and pass this problem on to a future president. He was going to take care of it. He's taking care of it now. Iran is never going to get a nuclear weapon, and we can thank Donald Trump for that, and God bless him. This is America. This is the quintessential America First action.
The president's former national security advisor, Robert O'Brien. Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
All right, Caroline Glick is one of the top advisors to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and she joins us tonight from Israel. And it's good to see you again. I want to start with reporting indications that I heard today that Iran may only have enough ballistic missiles to continue pounding Israel and our bases in the region for maybe another week at the most. Is there any estimation that Israel has on that?
Look, what I can tell you is that the number of missiles that they've been shooting at Israel has gone down pretty dramatically over the 4 days since they began. And so that's an indication that, yes, you're right. And obviously the BDA that we've been seeing from the strikes that we've been carrying out, that our American partners have been carrying out in Iran against the launchers, against the missiles themselves, is very encouraging. So we definitely see that their arsenal has been vastly diminished. They've also shot a lot, not only at Israel, but at all neighboring countries in the Arab world, and even at EU member state Cyprus, and on apparently to Turkey today. So they're just going all out. And right now the number has been going down. And so we're feeling pretty confident about the progress that we're making in destroying their missile arsenal.
What is the estimation that you believe that and how this will end? What do you think will happen here that will bring this to a close?
I think, what we're doing is we're developing the conditions. First of all, we're eradicating the threat that Iran's ballistic missile program and their missiles and their launchers and their nuclear program pose to Israel, to the United States, to the region, and to the wider world. As President Trump said, the United States has been decimating the Iranian Navy to protect maritime shipping through the Straits of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf. So these are the direct military operations that we're carrying out, and we believe that together these operations and others against the regime itself and weakening the regime, taking out the worst of the mass murderers there, are going to be setting the conditions that are going to enable the Iranian people who have been struggling under the jackboot of this murder machine for the past 47 years to finally seize their destiny and their freedom and bring about a change in Iran. So I think that we're setting the conditions. We'll obviously be doing what we can to support them as they move forward in their quest for freedom, just as we are now. And we'll have to see. I mean, it's not, nobody has an exact scenario of how it's going to look, but we know what we seek. We know where we're going. We know that we're going very deliberately towards that goal, and we're very happy with the pace of our achievements.
The Kurds, which is a group of people that kind of don't have necessarily have a homeland, but have been very Western friendly for a very long time in the region. There's reporting that the CIA is working with them, that potentially this could be a group of people that could help to stabilize Iran. What are your thoughts on that? And is there any indications that that's true on your end?
I think the Kurds are powerful people. They have their capabilities. You have the Baluchis, you have the Awaz Arabs, you have the Persians themselves, the Iranians, and so many other ethnic groups, religious groups. All of them want this regime out, and each in their own way is working and has been working for a very long time to try to overthrow the regime, and bring a better tomorrow to Iran and to the world. But I don't want to get into any specifics about the Kurds or anybody else. We can just say, whether it's regarding the Kurds or anybody else who's working to bring about the outcome that we all want, that we support them and that we're with them and we're doing everything that we can to help them achieve their goals.
Last question. There's reports that Khomeini's son, Mojtaba, is Iran's or will be Iran's new supreme leader. I assume you're going to kill him, or that he won't last very long? Is that the objective?
Well, look, I mean, we didn't go this far in order to have them replace a mass murderer that we were able to finally get rid of his father with somebody just as bad. So I think that should probably speak for itself.
I think it does. Caroline Glick, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too. All right, the big Texas primaries last night, a big loss for Jasmine Crockett, a young woman that's talked a lot of trash about Trump in the 2020 election, now alleging cheating in her own primary.
So long as they know that they can win, even if it means cheating, then they will continue to do it.
How rich. Plus, coming up in news from the left, a rhino shows his true colors on his way out the door.
Because numbers matter, right? No, they don't matter. Quality matters, not quantity.
These days, supporting the right causes matters more than ever. That's why I chose Patriot Mobile. They're not just a great mobile service provider, they're all about giving back. Every bill helps support causes we believe in: family, faith, and freedom. You get great nationwide coverage on all 3 main networks. Even better, you're doing it with an American company that stands up for us. It's time to make the switch, y'all. Let's support a wireless company that's got our back. Go to patriotmobile.com and make the switch today.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
James Tallarico has defeated Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett.
Crockett really pitched herself as a fighter, someone who was going to take on Donald Trump.
Crockett. Oh, man, oh, man. She's a very low IQ person.
One of the trashiest trash talkers in Congress just got humiliated in a Senate primary last night in Texas. Jasmine Crockett, decimated by the weird, woke religious guy, James Tallarico, claiming voters were being suppressed by Republicans in Dallas County. Crockett quickly turning into a threat to democracy, claiming that the election was crooked.
While many people were showing up to the polling locations, they were told things such as, you can't provide a provisional ballot. People saying, we're trying to go to DallasCountyVotes.org, and the website keeps crashing. Then we're hearing stories of, if the website is up, it's giving us the wrong location to go to. These voting machines, that they are down. Ever since they've called first thing in the morning to get more machines, they finally did bring some at some point in time, but those machines were Republican machines, not Democratic machines.
Voting machines? Republican voting machines? Ooh, just for fun. Here's Crockett slamming President Trump when he alleged a bad election in 2020.
We have so many people that don't believe that Joe Biden won the election, and most of them tend to be on the other side of the aisle, to commit the crime that he committed on January 6th. And frankly, the only reason he ran for president was to make sure that he would not be prosecuted, because I fully believe that you would have put him under the jail.
Everyone wants to talk about how Maduro was illegitimate. As we sit here on January 6th, I do want to be clear. Somebody else was trying to be a Maduro of the United States.
Yep. Oh, it's fun. Mercedes Schlapp is a senior fellow at CPAC. Dana Loesch, nationally syndicated radio host, living in Texas. It's her state. Dana, we start with you. The rich girl with the fake ghetto slang had a rough night. You must have enjoyed watching this.
It was, well, and it was at Democrats' own hand, too, which was the most hysterical thing about this. First off, Democrats run elections in Dallas, so if they were upset with how that went, they need to take it up with their own party. But secondly, they were the ones who were really running her out on a rail. I mean, they blocked her from late night television. They did a lot of ad buys in this state, not for her. You had the establishment that was entirely behind her. You had James Tallarico, who was spending more money and raising more money than Jasmine Crockett. This was the establishment tamping her down. So I think it's hysterical that the party that always talks about diversity and DEI's everything was not about to have it in a major race, which is, I think, where the party's going as we go forward.
Yeah, we do know that all of that nonsense goes right out the window when it's a threat to their power and it's a potential seat that they could get. They couldn't care less about any of it. Mercy, Tallarico, strange dude, really strange dude. Either going to face Cornyn or Paxton. He calls God non-binary, advocates for the trans community to receive abortions. Take a listen to this guy.
God is non-binary. I want to acknowledge that our trans community needs abortion care too. Defending trans Texans is something we have to do.
In Texas, how's this going to play, Mercy?
You know, I got to tell you, I think obviously Tallarico is going to try to portray himself as a moderate. We've seen this time and time again. We saw this, for example, with the candidate, now Governor Abigail Spanberger here in Virginia, where the focus for her was trying to stay on this moderate lane, honing in on issues of quote unquote cost of living and affordability. And then their decisions will be fully radical and fully woke and fully left. And so I think for Tallarico, you know, you start seeing these videos, for example, where he pushes all the transgender agenda. And I think that is just not where Texas is at. I mean, I think that he will come across trying to be this fake Christian. And I just think that hopefully the young people, especially those under 35, don't fall for this trap.
We're watching the left, the Marxists, trying to take the churches. I mean, James Tallarico is the church with the pride flag on the front of it. That's who he is. That strange church that everybody's seen. Let's move on. Dana, I want to talk about Cornyn and Paxton going to this runoff on the Republican side of this Senate race. Cornyn had to spend an absolute fortune to prop himself up against a much better Texan in Ken Paxton. He's barely in the lead after all of those tens of millions of dollars. Our president says he's going to make an endorsement in this soon. I'm nervous about that decision, knowing the pressure that the Senate puts on him.
Okay, this is a really weird race. This is a very weird runoff that's coming up in May. And I really wish that POTUS would just tell Tony Gonzalez to take a long walk off a short plank and back Brandon Herrera. This is what's weird. And the GOP in Texas never did a postmortem on this. In 2020, when Cornyn ran insanely, hands to sky, he got more votes than POTUS did. And here never figured out why. I think some of it may have been it may have been split ticket voting. I'm not quite sure. They're not quite sure. That factors into this, and I think it needs to be looked at. The reason I say POTUS needs to be careful is that you have two candidates. You go to battle with the soldiers you have, but each of them have issues. But I think they affect voters differently. Cornyn has issues because he sold out the nation on gun control. He sold out the nation on H-1Bs, and he's going to sell out the nation again when it comes to immigration because he's already talking about reforming and not just tearing down and obliterating the system. He shouldn't even be talking about reforming anything. Now, Paxton, his issues are personal. I talked about this all day on my radio program. Personal issues. I get very Machiavellian looking at this stuff. This is about me, the voter. It's about you, the voter. This is about which one of these guys is going to bring home the issues for the voter. One of them has a record of doing that, and his name doesn't rhyme with Schmornin. So I think that that's how voters need to look at this. Whether or not Trump gets involved in it, I think his time is spent better elsewhere because Texans are going to go to war over this. Make no mistake. I'm going to be in ad hell down here until May. It's going to be awful. It's going to be horrible. We're going to be doing a bunch of get out the vote stuff, I'm sure, but it's going to be a brawl. And I think POTUS needs to keep his powder dry on this.
Okay. Dana, Mercedes, good to see you both, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bombshell hearing today, the explosive Somali fraud that these guys clearly permitted. Up next.
This is unbelievable what's happening, and you're trying to hide behind some pretend court order.
Ready for relief? I just want relief. I needed relief.
You just want relief. Like, you just want it to go away.
You need the Signal Relief Patch.
We all hurt, whether it's our neck, back, knees, or shoulders. Pain keeps you from doing the things that matter most. In a recent study, 85% of people felt relief.
As a surgeon, I put it on, and I can't explain why it works. I can just tell you, it does work.
Some people think this is just in my head, but I know that it works. It's working.
The Signal Relief Patch for me offered up independence.
The Signal Relief Patch for me actually means pain relief.
With a Signal Patch, I've been able to sleep, walk, and work.
Relief. That's what the Signal Patch gave me.
It was phenomenal. Why aren't more people trying this?
Join the thousands who have experienced relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Get your patch today.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got a kid, and they're gonna love it.
Protect your family. Buy LifeVac now.
Thank you, Daddy.
That was us over 10 years ago.
Now, LifeVac is responsible for saving thousands of lives from choking.
In the time it takes you to pick up the phone and call, another life could be saved.
The LifeVac saved my life in 1 to 2 seconds.
Protecting families has always been our mission. I'm sure you love your family like I love my daughter. Do us all a favor and get your own life back now.
Go to lifevac.net or call 877-543-3822. Order now.
You can join the Tunnel to Towers mission to do good by donating your car to today's veterans. Your car donation will help Gold Star families, as well as injured veterans, our first responders, and our homeless veterans. Donating your car is quick and simple. Any car is accepted, and we will pick up the car for free. Simply call 844-BRAVES.
By donating your car, you can make a real difference. You can do good.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. No mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
Welcome back. Remember the rage that you felt when you first heard about the Minnesota Somali scam and all the billions of dollars that these people that we welcomed here, that we saved from their country, have been stealing from us? Let's return to that for a moment. Governor Tim Walz of the state, the Attorney General Keith Ellison on Capitol Hill today grilled over this scandal that, of course, they knew about. There's no way they couldn't have known about it. Congressman Jim Jordan laying it all out, making it clear there's no way that these two didn't realize what was happening in their state with our federal dollars.
The behavioral intervention program went from $3 million to $400 million in 5 years. The housing stabilization went from $2.6 million to $104 million. The integrated community supports went from $4.6 million to $170 million in 3 years. And this is unbelievable what's happening, and you're trying to hide behind some pretend court order.
Imagine you had a company and a line item for 1 year was $2 million, and then the next year it went up to $104 million. And you're going to say, I didn't know. I didn't see it. Would you ever believe that? The committee also releasing an explosive report revealing the fraud had been covered up for years by these key state leaders, titled The Cost of Doing Nothing, included transcribed interviews with 9 current and former Minnesota state employees and documents showing how Walz and Ellison were aware of the widespread fraud in federally funded social services programs through their state. So it's our federal dollars moving through Minnesota and being stolen by their voters. Deliberately misled the American people about their knowledge of the fraud, possessed clear authority to safeguard taxpayer dollars, and repeatedly failed to take any meaningful action. These men belong in jail. Congressman Byron Donalds was in the hearing today, and he joins us tonight. My assessment of that, I mean, what do you think? I mean, is there any possible way that these two did not watch as all of our money was stolen and say, I don't want to say anything?
They absolutely knew what was going on. They watched it happen. Tim Walz and Keith Ellison came into committee not prepared to answer questions about what they knew, when they were notified, and what the corrective measures were. The other piece of this is that in my questioning, we established the fact that whistleblowers were intimidated, that the Lieutenant Governor, Peggy Flanagan, she was intimidating whistleblowers. They did not want to get to the bottom of this. And it was only until social media exploded about this fraud that then Tim Walz decided that he was going to act. That was 6 years too late. Millions and billions of dollars were stolen, and it's outrageous.
Jim Jordan today calling out Walz, saying he was afraid of political backlash, of exposing all of these Somalians stealing all of this money, of accusing them of being fraudsters. Quoting Somali American Kase Megan, who is a former fraud investigator for the Minnesota Attorney General's office, who was one of the few prominent figures in the Somali community in Minneapolis to speak out about this fraud. So this is a good guy. Megan claimed there is a perception that forcefully tackling this issue might cause political backlash among the Somali community. For Democrats, that is a core voting bloc. Take a listen to this.
98 people have been indicted. You happen to know how many are Somali American?
I don't. We don't investigate or prosecute people based on ethnicity, religion.
Neither do I. We shouldn't do that. But Mr. Megan is a Somali American who just said that the core one of the concerns was this is a core voting bloc. And I just want to know if you know how many of the 98 people who have been indicted in your state are Somali.
I don't. Their ethnicity is not my concern.
85% of the people indicted were Somali American.
That to me feels like the story. You're watching as billions of dollars are being stolen from the federal government, but you care so little about federal money and our tax dollars that you'd rather just not say anything because it might be a minor political inconvenience to you, so you'll let billions of dollars be stolen. What do you think?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's pretty clear from all the testimony we received from officials in the state of Minnesota before today's hearing that Tim Walz fully knew what was going on. He was briefed on what was going on. His former chief of staff was fully briefed on it, and they dithered and did nothing. And the only logical conclusion is that they were colluding to make sure that the fraud continued so they would have assured voting base in the state of Minnesota. The question now is where we go from here. I know Tim Walz said today that he welcomes eligibility and audit checks in these programs, but here's the truth. Senate Democrats and House Democrats always block Republicans when they want to put more teeth into these programs to ensure that the dollars are being spent effectively. And again, another reason to get rid of the Senate filibuster so you can work around Senate Democrats to make sure that money goes out the door, is spent effectively on behalf of the American people and not given to fraudsters so they can buy jets and buy homes and send remittances back to Somalia that gets picked up by Al-Qaeda and others.
I'd say Tim Walz, Keith Ellison owe the country about $20 billion or so. I don't know how much they got in their bank accounts. Something else. Congressman, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Good to see you.
Trust me, they ain't got...
No, not even close. Thank you, sir. All right, reports indicate thousands of Kurdish fighters will soon become Trump's ground invasion. This is a very interesting story. What role did the CIA play in this? We have a former CIA covert operations officer up next.
The grind catches up with everyone, even me. That's why I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric to support my joint health. It's the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric. It helps you keep doing the things you love at every age. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. Most investors believe their IRA, 401k, and bank accounts are reliable and safe. But what if our economy becomes so dire that you're restricted from accessing your own money? The fact is that should your bank be in trouble for holding bad loans, the burden could fall on you to help bail them out. Even more concerning is that U.S. financial regulations allow banks to impose withdrawal limits on your hard-earned savings. But there's something you can do about it. Our team at Swiss America has a report called The Secret War on Cash. Learn how to protect yourself with assets that can remain outside the control of banks and other financial institutions. For over 40 years, Swiss America has been one of the most trusted metal firms in the country. So don't wait. Call or text the number on your screen today for financial peace of mind in these uncertain times.
1 in 4 taxpayers was a victim of identity theft.
We're not just tax-paying Americans.
We're fraud-paying Americans.
And we're not paying anymore.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back.
Your Florida life is calling, and we have the answer. Valencia in Florida by GL Homes. Premium 55-plus living in 5 prime Florida locations. Gorgeous new homes from the mid-300s to $2.5 million. World-class resort-style living 24/7. Huge clubhouses, on-site dining, pickleball, and more. Effortless, low-maintenance living. Valencia, your Florida life is calling. Experience more at valenciaflorida.com.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
I'm Yalmer Heinrich. I'm in the nutritional business, primarily selling plant-derived minerals. Now, after being in this business for 43 years, owning a cancer hospital in Mexico, and associating with some of the most knowledgeable nutritional people in the world, I came to this conclusion. The world is sick due to a lack of minerals in our food, which is caused by a lack of minerals in topsoil. There is an incredible and proven nutritional product on the market that can overcome this problem. It's Immuno 150. This unusual food supplement contains 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 additional nutrients. There's nothing like it. Now watch the 3 videos on our website and place your order for what may be the best food supplement in the world. Now Immuno 150 is different, it's real, it's powerful, it's helped thousands, and we believe it enjoys the highest reorder rate in the industry. Thank you and God bless.
The CIA working to arm Kurdish forces to stage some sort of a major ground operation going inside Iran. They want to spark an uprising.
They will be going into Western Iran as part of some kind of a ground operation over the course or at some point during the next few days. President Trump himself had called the leader of the KDPI, which is one of these Iranian Kurdish opposition parties.
So this is an interesting moment here in this very new battle with Iran, maybe the biggest Iran update of the day. I-24 News reporting early that thousands of Kurdish forces in Iraq, right next door, have launched a ground military offensive into Iran against the Islamic regime, claiming they began taking combat positions inside Iranian territory back on Monday. The deputy chief of staff to the Iraqi Kurdistan prime minister, that's the region that a lot of these people live in, Kurdistan, writing this evening, not a single Iraqi Kurd has crossed the border. They're calling the reporting patently false. CNN, Reuters, Wall Street Journal all reporting the CIA has been working to arm Kurdish forces to lead an uprising in Iran. We talked about these people at the top of the show. These are the good guys. We've been working with them against terrorism for a very long time, for 25 years. President Trump also reportedly spoke over the phone with Kurdish leaders. The total number of Kurds living in Iraq is around 8 million. A majority of them living in Iraqi Kurdistan region. That's in the north, and that's right there near the Iranian border, as you see. So this is interesting. Mike Baker is a former CIA covert operations officer. He joins us now. James Carafano is a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel. Gentlemen, good to have you both here. Mike, you're former CIA. What do you think is happening right now with the Kurds?
Well, this is a really complicated story, and we have to be a little bit careful about this. The idea that somehow the Kurds are just one homogenous group is just not the case. Right. You've got a number of militias, a number of factions, a couple of which are listed as terrorist organizations by the U.S., so the idea, I guess you could draw comparisons to some degree to going back to 2001 and the work that was done with the Northern Alliance in terms of toppling the Taliban back then. So obviously we had a major air campaign, et cetera, et cetera. Then we needed ground troops to kind of get the job done, because you're not going to topple a regime necessarily just through air assaults. So I would just stress that this is not as simple as saying up-arm the Kurdish force as if it's just one entity. Right. They're going to go in and create chaos, right? Because you've got a lot of players in here, including Turkey, and their involvement in this could get ugly.
Yeah. James, that's the first thing I was thinking, is that we have a history of arming people and then we end up facing those guns and bullets at a later date. Is there a risk of that in this idea?
Yeah, I don't think this story is near as big a deal as people make it out. Okay. So there's Kurds all over the region. They're in Syria, they're in Turkey, they're in Iraq, they're in Iran. We don't think we're talking about the Iraqi Kurds. That's a self-governing part of Iraq that has actually a military called the Peshmerga military. They've already said that they're not invading Iran. So I think we're mostly talking about here about Iranian Kurds who are displaced, living in Iraq. Some militias, okay, the numbers are in a couple of thousand. There's 90 million people in Iran in a country that's twice the size of Texas. That is not a military that can conquer anything. They may have worked with U.S. forces. They may be able to do some of the kinds of things we did in Afghanistan, turning coordinating air support and some other things.
Yeah.
They don't have logistics. They probably don't have heavy weapons. So they're not going to conquer Iran.
Okay,
that's just not happening.
That's fair. But Mike, obviously the president, if it's true that the president is talking to them, there must be some kind of a plan here that they think is viable, that's important in some way.
Well, I think it's a tool in the kit bag, perhaps, is what they're thinking. And if you can create some chaos up there and perhaps pull away some of the security apparatus, cause the Iranian regime to send some troops up there in an effort to deal with some of this potential disruption, then maybe that's what they're thinking. But yeah, James actually correct. This is not the case where we're talking about an uprising that's going to move into Iran and take over the country. That's just not possible with the numbers that we're talking about and their capabilities.
Okay, James, final thought.
Yeah, what the people in the region are worried about right now are not militias or missiles or drones. They're worried about refugees. They're afraid that if the conflict begins to spiral, going to be masses of refugees pouring over into their border. So if you talk to people in the region right now, what are you most worried about? And they're worried about hundreds of thousands of Iranians showing up at their door. That's the big crisis right now in the region.
It's going to be very interesting. Gentlemen, thanks so much. James Carafano, Mike Baker. Good to see you guys. Fight breaks out at a Black Lives Matter office. The reason why is hysterical. Up next.
And did you call the police when this happened?
No, I didn't. I didn't. I would not like to see a black man in jail.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit, total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet exercise could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 five-star reviews, and Lift EX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
AI company Palantir makes critical decisions for governments around the world. In 2019, Palantir bought $50 million in gold in case of black swan events. Not surprising, what followed? In 2020, a pandemic shut down the global economy. And in 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. In 2023, we had a regional banking collapse. And in 2026, could a 1929-style market crash be the final straw? Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row. Home of the No Fee for Life IRA. Patriot Gold Group is patriots protecting patriots. Call now, 888-528-4290.
When my mother heard about Pure Talk's latest offer, she said, Michael, that's a third of what I'm paying my current provider. How's that even possible? I said, Ma, your current provider spent $12 billion last year on advertising and promotion. Pure Talk hired me to make a few commercials on my iPhone. That's why you can get unlimited talk and text with plenty of data on a crazy fast 5G network for just $25 a month. You're welcome. Pure Talk. Everything you need. Nothing you don't.
Pump up the volume. Go ahead. Crank the volume. We got you. USPS has increased daily package processing capacity by 46% in the past 5 years. And with USPS Ground Advantage, your packages stay in our secure network, dock to door, nationwide. For full visibility, near real-time tracking, affordable pricing, for peace of mind. USPS Ground Advantage.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. Rhino Republican Thom Tillis leaving the Senate this year finally at Kristi Noem's hearing yesterday, showing his true colors right before he walks out the door, as they always do. Take a look.
So why am I disappointed with Secretary Noem? Because we're not going after enough people who did this damage at the expense of running numbers that Stephen Miller wants out of the White House. We just want numbers, because numbers matter, right? No, they don't matter. Quality matters, not quantity, quality. And what we've seen is a disaster. Under your leadership, Ms. Noem, what we've seen is innocent people getting detained that turn out are American citizens.
Are you a Democrat now? He's pretending to be upset over somebody misapprehended. What he really wants is for them to stop deporting everybody, because this is what they call an open border Republican. He was against Trump's border wall in 2019. He tanked the vote against Ed Martin to be U.S. attorney in D.C. He voted against the big, beautiful bill, opposed Trump's pardons for J6 defendants, and vowed to block Fed nominees over their probe into Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, and the explosive cost of the new Federal Reserve. Thom Tillis is exactly why Trump can never seem to get a lot done, thanks to the Senate. There is the reason, there's the problem right there, and now he's going to go get paid. Next up, wild video here. Clyde McLemore, the executive director of Black Lives Matter chapter in Lake County, Illinois, getting his butt kicked by another staffer named Naisha Hill. The girl wins the fight here after Naisha accused Clyde of gambling away their funds. How much of the BLM money actually went anywhere except their pockets? It would be a great question. Naisha getting the upper hand, managing to throw Clyde to the floor twice. He pinned him on the ground. He beat the hell out of him. The altercation leaving both of them with lip injuries and Clyde humiliated. Take a look.
I told him it's not fair that I come here and I work and you running around taking care of other things that don't got nothing to do with Black Lives Matter, with Black Lives Matter money.
And did you call the police when this happened?
No, I didn't. I didn't. I would not like to see a black man in jail.
You beat him up, but you don't want to see him in jail. It goes along with the general logic of BLM. I feel so sorry for the people that donated to that scam, and a lot of people dumped a lot of money into them. Next up, Gavin Newsom says Republicans have California derangement syndrome.
I mean, it's 24/7, the California derangement syndrome. It's through these propaganda networks, focusing on what's wrong every single day. And there's an old adage, you're nothing more than your consistent thoughts. Whatever you focus on, you find more of. And these networks have really honed in on California for one reason. Our success runs completely contra to their entire world view.
Our success. California is the most prime thing in the world, and it's just been beaten to hell and back by Gavin Newsom and his policies for the last 10 years. It could be so much bigger and better than it is. It literally survives in spite of him. The arrogance and the ego of this goon that wants to run this country. Priceless. And finally, the weird relationship between our president and the mayor of New York. The two meeting last week in the Oval to discuss housing and immigration. And then Trump this week trolls him by posting a picture of him standing in front of the Declaration of Independence like he's a 13-year-old kid on a trip to the museum, saying Zoran has come a long way, embracing, of course, the Declaration of Independence while at the Oval Office. Big progress. I mean, they made Zoran stand there so they could take a picture of him in front of this very American thing because he's a Ugandan communist Marxist Muslim. And the funny thing is, Trump has all of his money, or a lot of his money, his federal funding that he needs so badly, so Zoran can't do anything. So Trump can just kind of treat him like a little pawn. Go stand there. I'm going to take a picture of you and I'm going to put it on social media. What are you going to do about it? You need my $1 billion. More on the Iran war up next.
You know Rob Finnerty. He's smart, bold, and stands strong for your values. Rob is fighting for you. Watch Finnerty weeknights only on Newsmax.
As the leader of the Coalition for Student Wellbeing, I believe students must be at the table when discussing youth mental health. Alongside their parents, kids are navigating a challenging world during formative years in their lives. Major life changes, academic pressures, and financial challenges can feel overwhelming. The type of stress can look really different for each student. That's why we need a thoughtful, comprehensive solution informed by young people. Get involved today at EmpowerOurFutureCoalition.com.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
To a hacker, your tax return isn't just paperwork, it's a gold mine. Your social security number and bank data are their biggest payday of the year. Old antivirus software can't keep up. You need PCmatic. Our default deny technology blocks every single threat that hasn't been pre-approved. If we don't know it, we block it. Secure your return right now. Buy PCmatic antivirus and we will give you PCmatic VPN for free. American-made security for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Visit PCmatic.com.
Ready for relief? I just want relief. I needed relief.
You just want relief. Like you just want it to go away.
You need the Signal Relief Patch.
We all hurt, whether it's our neck, back, knees, or shoulders. Pain keeps you from doing the things that matter most. In a recent study, 85% of people felt relief.
As a surgeon, I put it on, and I can't explain why it works. I can just tell you, it does work.
Some people think this is just in my head, but I know that it works. It's working.
The Signal Relief Patch for me offered up independence.
The Signal Relief Patch for me actually means pain relief.
With a Signal Patch, I've been able to sleep, walk, and work.
Relief. That's what the Signal Patch gave me.
It was phenomenal. Why aren't more people trying this?
Join the thousands who have experienced relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Get your patch today.
A heart attack? Do they have life insurance?
No.
But we have life insurance. John.
I'm trying to find something we can afford.
Fortunately, in only a few minutes, SelectQuote found John a $500,000 policy for only $29 a month. And his wife Anne a $500,000 policy for only $21 a month. Go to SelectQuote.com now and get the insurance your family needs
at a price you can afford. SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
All right, Finity's up next. Got two things I want to talk about before I let you have it. The Senate voting today, just a couple hours ago, to end this war, which would have meant a loss of the war for the president. That is how obsessed Democrats in the Senate are with hurting Donald Trump. And also, Rob, the Ayatollah's son is going to be the new Ayatollah. You have to wonder, when you take a job like that, how long do you think you'll actually be alive?
Yes, he apparently spends a lot of time in the UK having medical procedures that I will let you Google at home, but take my word for it, this was widely reported today. Yes. All right, Rob, we'll see you in a little bit. Finity starts right now.